She grabbed his hand in the middle of a crowded street market and whispered, "Please, just 5 minutes, pretend to be my boyfriend," and before he could even ask why, a tall man in an expensive coat turned around and stared at them with cold amusement. Daniel had faced boardrooms full of ruthless investors without flinching, yet something in her trembling voice made his chest tighten in a way no business battle ever had. He was used to humiliation, but not the loud kind, not the kind that leaves bruises you can see. His humiliation had been quiet, polished, hidden behind headlines that once called him a fraud, a failure, a man who lost everything overnight. Years earlier he had built a company from nothing, pouring his youth into it, trusting the wrong partner, a powerful executive named Marcus Voss who smiled in public and destroyed people in private. Marcus was influential, connected to politicians, admired by the media, and when the company began to rise, he slowly pushed Daniel out, forged documents, twisted numbers, and convinced the world that Daniel was unstable and incompetent. Daniel did not fight loudly. He did not hold press conferences or beg for sympathy. He stepped back and let the storm swallow his name, and for a while it did. He disappeared from the spotlight and rebuilt in silence, investing carefully, learning from every betrayal, growing stronger without anyone noticing. Now he was wealthier than before, but he kept it quiet, simple clothes, no security, no flashy cars, just a man walking through a market alone on a gray afternoon. The woman holding his hand looked exhausted, her eyes ringed with sleepless nights, her free hand gripping a small bag of groceries like it was the only thing keeping her steady. The tall man approaching them was Marcus Voss. Of all places, of all cities, fate had placed them on the same narrow street lined with fruit stands and murmuring vendors. Marcus's gaze moved from Daniel's simple jacket to the woman's worn shoes, and a slow smirk spread across his face. "So this is who you replaced me with," he said to her, his voice smooth and cutting, a struggling nobody. The woman's fingers tightened around Daniel's hand. Daniel felt the old sadness rise first, heavy and familiar, the memory of being called nothing, the memory of losing everything he built, the nights staring at the ceiling wondering how lies could win so easily. He could have pulled his hand away, could have told her he did not want trouble, but something in her posture, something protective and desperate, made him stay. She had asked for 5 minutes. That was all. Marcus laughed softly and leaned closer, reminding her how he once paid her rent when she could not afford it, how he helped her get a job at his company, how easily he could take it away. The people around pretended not to listen, but their eyes lingered. Daniel stayed quiet. He had learned the power of silence. The woman lifted her chin and said she did not need Marcus anymore. Marcus's smile vanished for a second, replaced by irritation. He asked Daniel what he did for a living, and Daniel answered calmly that he worked in investments. Marcus scoffed and said everyone works in investments when they are unemployed. The sadness in Daniel shifted into helplessness for a brief moment, because he knew this pattern. Marcus humiliates publicly, isolates privately, controls through fear. The woman's job, her stability, maybe even her small apartment, could disappear with one phone call. Daniel felt the urge to expose everything right there, to reveal who he truly was, to wipe that smirk off Marcus's face, but he did not. He remembered the years he spent rebuilding quietly, the lessons in patience, the strength that grows when you let arrogance reveal itself. He simply wrapped his arm gently around the woman's shoulders and said, "We should go." Marcus stepped in front of them, blocking the path, his voice low now, telling her she would regret embarrassing him. The woman's eyes filled with tears, but she did not step back. Daniel felt something shift inside him, not anger, but a quiet spark of hope, because he recognized courage when he saw it. She was standing up to a man who once controlled her life. Marcus finally stepped aside with a dismissive wave, telling her she would come crawling back. Daniel and the woman walked away slowly, not looking back. After a few steps she let go of his hand and apologized, explaining that Marcus had been her boss and her boyfriend, that when she became pregnant he accused her of trying to trap him, that he fired her, then offered financial help only if she stayed silent and invisible. She refused. She raised her son alone. Today she had run into him unexpectedly, and panic made her ask a stranger for help. Daniel listened quietly. The sadness returned, but now it was mixed with empathy. He understood what it meant to be cornered by someone powerful and untouchable. He asked about her son. She smiled faintly and said he was 5, stubborn and kind. They reached the end of the street. She thanked him again and started to walk away. Daniel paused, then asked for her name. Elena, she said. He nodded and told her he hoped things would get better. That night Daniel could not stop thinking about the fear in her eyes and the arrogance in Marcus's voice. He had spent years gathering evidence of Marcus's corruption, offshore accounts, bribery deals, illegal terminations hidden behind complex contracts. He had planned to act carefully, waiting for the perfect moment. Maybe this was it. But he did not rush. He had learned patience the hard way. Over the next weeks he began to look into Elena's employment records through quiet channels. He discovered Marcus's company had a pattern of exploiting single mothers, firing them before benefits matured, intimidating them with legal threats. Daniel felt helpless again for a moment, realizing how many lives had been quietly damaged while Marcus remained celebrated in magazines. But helplessness did not paralyze him anymore. It guided him toward strategy. He contacted a trusted attorney and shared part of the evidence he had collected over the years. He funded a legal review into wrongful termination cases, anonymously at first. Elena received a letter informing her that her dismissal was under investigation. She called Daniel, confused, asking if he knew anything. He told her only that sometimes justice takes time. Marcus, confident as always, dismissed the investigation publicly, calling it a smear campaign by jealous competitors. He laughed on television, charming and composed. For a while it seemed like nothing would change. Investors still praised him. Politicians still shook his hand. Elena received subtle threats, reminders that fighting back would be expensive and exhausting. Daniel felt the old sadness again, the weight of knowing that truth alone is not enough. But he remained patient. He released documents slowly, through journalists who valued facts over influence. Former employees began to speak. Patterns became visible. The media tone shifted from admiration to curiosity, then to suspicion. Marcus's calls were not returned as quickly. Board members requested internal audits. Elena was invited to testify anonymously about her experience. She was terrified. Daniel sat with her before the hearing, not as a millionaire, not as a savior, but as the man who once held her hand for 5 minutes in a market. He told her she was stronger than she believed. She spoke calmly, describing manipulation, pressure, humiliation. Others followed. The case grew. Marcus tried to intimidate witnesses, but the spotlight was too bright now. Regulators stepped in. Financial crimes that Daniel had documented years ago resurfaced with new context. The untouchable man began to look vulnerable. Months passed. It was not quick. Justice rarely is. Elena found part-time work during the investigation. Daniel visited her and her son occasionally, always simple, never flashy. The boy liked him. One evening the child asked if Daniel was rich. Daniel smiled and said he was comfortable. He did not need to prove anything. Finally the verdict came. Marcus was charged with fraud, coercion, and labor violations. His company's stock collapsed. The same media that once praised him now dissected his arrogance. In a quiet courtroom, Elena received compensation and a formal apology from the board. It was not dramatic. There were no cheers. Just a steady acknowledgement that wrong had been done. Daniel stood beside her, not in the spotlight, but present. Marcus glanced at him once, recognition and disbelief mixing in his eyes as he finally understood who had orchestrated the slow unraveling. Daniel did not smile. He felt no triumph, only a calm sense of balance restored. Outside the courthouse, Elena turned to him and asked why he helped her. He paused, then admitted the truth, that he was not just an investor, that he once lost everything because of Marcus, that he had spent years waiting for the right moment to let the truth surface. She stared at him in shock. A millionaire had held her hand in a market and said nothing. He shrugged gently and said money means little if you stay silent when others suffer. Months later they walked through the same market again, this time without fear. Her son ran ahead laughing. The vendors greeted them warmly. No one blocked their path. Daniel was still quiet, still calm, but inside he felt something healed. The sadness of betrayal had softened. The helplessness had transformed into strength. The quiet hope he carried had been justified through patience. And the justice that arrived was not loud or explosive, it was steady and undeniable. Elena squeezed his hand, not for 5 minutes, but because she wanted to, and this time there was no pretending.